Direct from our newsroom in New York, in color, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Eric Savaride in Washington, Bob Gregory in Farmington, West Virginia, Murray Frompson in Bangkok, Thailand, Ed Rabel in Ed Couch, Texas, Terry Drinkwater in San Francisco, and tonight, Chief Foreign Correspondent Charles Collingwood narrates Part 2 of a special picture report inside North Vietnam.
Good evening. After more than a week of futile rescue efforts, continued fire, and a series of new explosions, including another violent one today, West Virginia mine officials tonight made the final heartbreaking decision on the fate of those 78 missing miners. Bob Gregory reports.
The end has finally come. After 9 days, the 78 miners have been given up for dead, and the mine will be sealed. John Corcoran, president of the mine's parent company, carried the inevitable news to the victims' relatives. They have gathered here each day and night in this small red brick church, waiting for news of a miracle, but it was not to be. The spreading fire underground cannot be put out any other way. The capping techniques will differ. At some shafts, like this one, steel caps will be used. At others, conveyor belts will rush rock, gravel, and dirt to openings too dangerous for men to approach. Almost everyone here believes the company did everything possible to determine if the men were alive, and also there is a widespread belief here that all 78 miners probably died 9 days ago, the morning of the first explosion. Once the mine is finally sealed, it will not be reopened for probably a year. Bob Gregory, CBS News, Farmington, West Virginia.
These will be great for bird watching.
Norman.
Hey, it's a white-crested lather waster.
I only used a squeeze. It's Pearl concentrate. See?
Oh. Hey, it didn't break.
See any unusual birds?
Just a cute chick in my own backyard.
Oh. I'm going to take a shower, but not with soap. And I bet I'll feel cleaner than you. I always use deodorant Zest. It's not a soap. It's different. Zest leaves you feeling cleaner than soap. Want to see? Soap here, deodorant Zest here. That's the lather you get with soap. But Zest makes more than twice as much. And it's deodorant lather, so you stay feeling cleaner than soap, because, look, soap leaves a soap film that sticks to your skin. But see, Zest doesn't. With deodorant Zest, you feel fresher, cleaner all day. Cleaner than soap.
South Vietnam said today that an early ceasefire is part of the proposed peace plan it will present at the expanded Paris talks. But communist officials immediately rejected any idea of stopping the fighting, saying the war will end only when U.S. forces leave South Vietnam. As if to bear that out, the Viet Cong High Command today ordered a new guerrilla and terrorist offensive in the South, concentrating on government officials, pacification teams, and search and destroy units that have been moving deeper into communist-controlled territory. South Vietnam's President Nguyen Cao Ky, who will be chief advisor to Saigon's delegation to the Paris peace talks, may not operate out of Paris at all. Our CBS News bureaus there and in Saigon have reports that Ky is angry because the French reportedly have refused to grant him the diplomatic VIP treatment he thinks he deserves. That would include, among other things, the housing due a dignitary, security bodyguards, and communications facilities. These reports say Ky may operate out of Geneva. In the fighting, Allied troops report killing more than 400 of the enemy in 4 days of action near the Cambodian border. And U.S. Marines accounted for 300 Viet Cong in a sweep through a communist stronghold south of Da Nang. At least 35 Americans died in the Cambodian frontier battles, but there was no immediate report on Marine casualties. Earlier this week, the Viet Cong released an Australian businessman, 54-year-old Keith Hyland, who had been captured during the Tet Offensive 9 months ago. In Bangkok, Thailand, Murray Frompson asked Hyland about life with the guerrillas.
The whole principle of captivity was to reduce you to a complete mental state of pulp while keeping your body physically fit. Everything was done with the strictest of strictest discipline and humiliation. This was an old, if you know the old 4,000-year-old system of Chinese, they call it non-violation of the body treatment of the prisoner, which means they do everything to subjugate you to completely to their will. Having got you there, they then question you in every shape or form and endeavor to give you a line of thought. They will first tell you, if you tell me what crimes you have committed, we will not hold it against you. But subsequently they do. This is the way of treating you. They believe it is correct. Their way of thinking is their way of thinking. It's extremely difficult for a Western man to understand their thinking. They wanted me first to make many statements about the atrocities of the Americans. They asked me, would I? I said, no, that was not my role. I'm a commercial man. I do not believe it's necessary that you should ask me to do this, irrespective of what I felt or thought. They told me the Australians were very ferocious fighters and that they had done many wrong things. I said, well, that's still not a question of me. I think it's war, and your people have no right to ask me to do this. I do not believe they have. And if they have, I think it's still a question of war. I cannot feel correct in doing it. And I resisted all this all the way down the line. It did not please them. I had to go back. Food was their second major factor. They used food as a means or medium to break you down. If you performed well, they gave you extra pieces of salt fish. Rice with salt fish, rice with pumpkin. We had pumpkin on end for 3 months in salt water. If you were a nice boy, you got 8 pieces instead of 6 pieces of pumpkin.
This evening, we present the second of 3 special film reports from inside North Vietnam. It is recent footage obtained by CBS News from French cameraman Roger Pic, a frequent visitor to North Vietnam. It focuses on civilian bomb damage in the southern panhandle. Now, all the information dealing with the filming came from Pic himself. Charles Collingwood is the narrator.
In the panhandle of North Vietnam, the biggest city below the 19th parallel was Vinh. Nobody lives in Vinh anymore. On the main road leading to South Vietnam, Vinh was an early target of American bombing, and between April and November of 1968, when all bombing of North Vietnam was concentrated between the 19th and the 17th parallels, Vinh received regular attention from American planes. There is no structure in Vinh which remains undamaged, including the former regional headquarters of the International Control Commission, whose function was to supervise the 1954 Geneva Armistice Agreements. Like the civilian population, the Indian, Polish, and Canadian officers of the International Control Commission have long since been evacuated. South of Vinh, closer to the 18th parallel, the city of Ha Tinh presents a similar scene of desolation. With the end of the bombing, people are coming back to begin the work of rebuilding. In this area of North Vietnam, nothing along the road escaped, not even the Catholic cathedral at Gia Duai. The cathedral, of course, was not a target in itself, but anything near the roads along which the North Vietnamese sent men and military supplies south was eventually demolished. The people, who have been dispersed to new communities now miles from any road, can come back during the day. Some reconstruction, or at least cleaning up, seems to be beginning. Since this was the first time that any pictures were permitted in this area, the appearance of Roger Pic's film camera created a small sensation. Father Tron Van Song, who was himself wounded when the cathedral was bombed in July, explained to his flock what was going on. It would be hard to read from the faces of these North Vietnamese any trace of the difficult conditions under which they have been living, or to guess at the psychological effects. Cameraman Roger Pic, who is sympathetic to the North Vietnamese cause, says their morale is high, but even he expressed surprise at the lack of emotion with which they greeted the end of the bombing. The people of the panhandle of North Vietnam go on with their assigned tasks. They're still unable to return to their former homes, and the regime keeps them in a state of continued vigilance. Charles Collingwood, CBS News, Paris.
UPI reports that communist Romania has bowed to Russian pressure and agreed to permit Soviet troops on its soil during Warsaw Pact maneuvers next year. But London diplomatic sources say the Romanians demanded and got assurances from the Russians that they would withdraw once the maneuvers are over. You may recall that both Romania and Yugoslavia openly criticized the Soviet bloc invasion of Czechoslovakia last summer, which followed maneuvers there. And President Tito, in a speech today marking the 25th anniversary of his Yugoslav regime, said he intends to continue an independent communist course free of Kremlin domination. Greek exile leader Andreas Papandreou charged today that the Soviets' Czechoslovak invasion was no worse than what he called U.S. support of fascism in Greece. Papandreou, appearing before the European Human Rights Commission in Strasbourg, France, said American financial and military support is maintaining the Athens junta that overthrew the government of his late father. 2 Greek political prisoners who were sent under guard by the junta to tell the commission they received decent treatment came out with some surprise testimony. Both instead accused the military of torturing and threatening to execute them. They've now found refuge with a Greek exile group. A West German court today sentenced 7 former Nazis to up to 15 years of hard labor for the World War II murders of tens of thousands of Jews and Russians in the Soviet Ukraine. Their crimes included the slaughter of almost 34,000 Jewish men, women, and children in Babi Yar near Kiev.
My husband. He thinks he's made of iron, like a statue. Pays no attention to the weather until he winds up with a cold or flu.
That's when doctors say to rest in bed, drink plenty of fluids, and take aspirin to relieve the pains and fever. Bayer is 100% aspirin, and aspirin is what doctors recommend. Soon spring will come again. Bayer doesn't claim credit for that, but for the pains and fever of a cold or flu, Bayer works wonders.
When you have acid indigestion, every second counts. So count on instant-acting Phillips tablets. Phillips tablets go to work in seconds. With one of the fastest stomach settlers ever discovered, each small Phillips tablet neutralizes more excess stomach acid than the leading antacid tablet that comes in a roll. So for fast relief from acid-upset stomach, when every second counts, count on instant-acting Phillips tablets.
Some revisions in the nation's tax structure were suggested today by the incoming and the outgoing administrations. Health, Education, and Welfare Secretary Wilbur Cohen noted the public school crisis, said they need the $2 billion withdrawn by the recent Congress's economy cut, and added that property taxes no longer are an adequate means of supporting the schools, that new sources of revenue must be found. Herbert Stein, an economic advisor to President-elect Nixon, meanwhile recommended that the income tax surcharge be permanently retained with annual adjustments in rates to stabilize the economy and fight inflation. From his Texas ranch, President Johnson announced that the administration, meeting Congress's economy demands, had reduced the federal payroll by almost 24,000 full-time employees in the last quarter. But the report noted it will take 18 months to knock off the 92,000 other jobs ordered eliminated. A civil rights protest by Mexican-American students in Ed Couch, Texas, has spread to 2 other locations in the Rio Grande Valley. The story of that movement from Ed Rabel.
This is the Rio Grande, which flows the length of the Rio Grande Valley. It is a lush valley of citrus groves, where Mexican-Americans, attracted by the agriculture industry, outnumber the Anglo population. The practice here has been one of domination, the Anglos dominating the Latins. But the Mexican-Americans say that day has ended, that they are on the move, that they will have a piece of the action. Mexican-American students at a school in the valley community of Ed Couch have been demonstrating for what they say are their rights. The school district expelled about 175 of the students after they staged a walkout and began the demonstrations. Later, the students presented a list of demands, one of which challenged the school's alleged policy prohibiting the speaking of Spanish on the school grounds. Why is it very important to you that you be allowed to speak Spanish on the school grounds?
Well, that's our mother tongue, so I don't see why it should be taken away from us.
We're born of
Mexican-American parents, and we have to speak Spanish to them, and they want us to forget our native tongue. And I don't think that's fair for us.
School officials deny charges that speaking Spanish on school grounds is prohibited, although they say they strongly encourage pupils to speak English. They also deny charges that Mexican-American students have been physically abused. At a special meeting between board members and parents, School Superintendent A.W. Bell denied the allegation that faculty members have been guilty of blatant discrimination against pupils.
I can give you the official stand of both the school board and the administration, and that is that we not have discrimination in the school system. There may be isolated cases of discrimination that we don't know about. And I say, quite frankly, if we do have them, I'd like to know about them, because we're not supposed to have them.
Well, what is the attitude of the administration toward Mexican Americans?
Well, on my opinion, they have always been pushing us, and I think it's time for us not to be pushed around so much like they have.
They want you to say, well, I regret what I've done, and I won't do it again. They want you to do that in order to get back into school. Will you do that?
No, I won't.
Why?
Because, I don't feel sorry for what I did. I think it's right.
The school dispute exemplifies the new spirit pervading Mexican Americans who live along this river. The Mexican Americans here hope their new spirit will bring a better life to them. Ed Rabel, CBS News, in the Rio Grande Valley.
A federal judge has ruled those school suspensions invalid, pending individual hearings for each student. A state of emergency was declared today in Newark, New Jersey, after about half the city's police and firemen called in sick to press demands for higher pay. City officials support the demands, but say the funds are not available. A curfew is in effect, and liquor sales have been suspended in Newark, with its population of 400,000 and one of the nation's highest crime rates. Leaders of 19 police and firemen's organizations have advised the men to obey a court order to resume work, but whether they will is not known yet. Law and order, police complaints about pay, breakdowns, and police community relations. They're all familiar problems to a large part of this nation. But now we learn that Russia is having to deal with them too. The Kremlin today announced a major reorganization of the Soviet police system to promote, quote, law and order. It's accompanied by a definite theme: support your local police. The reforms call for better pay and working conditions for the Soviet cop, public relations appearances by police at factories and neighborhoods, and last but not least, a big publicity campaign to promote the image and prestige of Ivan the policeman.
They're ready for dessert. All right, dear. There's 10 pumpkin pies, 9 with Cool Whip, 5 plum puddings, all with Cool Whip, 6 cherry tarts, 5 with Cool Whip, and 8 mince pies, 7 with Cool Whip. And no pie for Uncle Harry, just Cool Whip.
Oh, that Uncle Harry.
Why bother with a beater? Non-dairy Cool Whip topping comes already whipped, but tastes like you went to a whole lot of trouble.
On a Braniff airliner leaving South America, we served Sanka coffee to a real coffee lover without her knowing it.
Do you drink a lot of coffee? Well, 13 cups a day. Did you like the taste of our coffee? It was very good. It was Sanka coffee. Well, I don't see any difference. I mean, in the natural coffee that we drink in South America, to the Sanka, I don't see any difference.
Surprising Sanka coffee, 97% caffeine-free.
President-elect Nixon is sending former Pennsylvania Governor William Scranton to the Middle East Monday on a fact-finding mission. Nixon sent messages to the heads of state of Israel and 5 Arab nations, asking them to give their views fully and frankly to Scranton. The Soviet Union announced today the launching of yet another unmanned satellite in the Cosmos series. That statement, plus others out of Moscow, and add to the speculation that the Russians might attempt a manned shot around the moon, in the near future, perhaps early next month, before the United States Apollo 8 mission scheduled to start December 21st. Prices made strong gains on the New York Stock Exchange today. Brokers said that, among other things, some people appear to be buying stocks as a hedge against inflation. Volume was 14,400,000 shares. The exchange index rose 32 cents. At California's San Quentin prison, something new is being tried in convict rehabilitation. The prison now has its first commuting inmate. Terry Drinkwater reports from San Francisco.
Before Matt Zalick, no inmate had ever legally walked out of San Quentin until a full prison term had been served. This is a maximum security institution for men convicted of major crimes. Matt Zalick was sentenced 5 years to life for robbery and assault with a deadly weapon. He served nearly 7 years. He is still a prisoner. But now, every working day for a few hours, he is, in a sense, a free man. He commutes to San Francisco and a job. He is the first man in a new experiment being tried here, an experiment aimed at training men in skills useful on the outside for when they're released. For years, minimum security prisons and rehabilitation centers have conducted programs like this. But until Matt Zalick, it had not been tried at state penitentiaries such as San Quentin. At night, he is locked up like all the other prisoners. But by day, he works here at a car dealership in San Francisco. Zalick is learning how to be a mechanic.
You set your dwell with the machine there, and then you go ahead and close this side up.
Don't always start from this side and go around.
Yeah, it's best, because then you don't miss anything, and you have one routine that you go with.
At San Quentin, the prisoner allowance is $9 a month. Zalick is now earning $152 a week. He was chosen first because he really is a model prisoner, and because this was his first conviction.
Just put the gauge on each one as you go along.
Right. And just get a nice snug 22,000, sir. And you just follow through.
That clearance will be the same on each one?
Exactly.
Right. I would say this is a trade you don't learn overnight, huh?
No, I've been at it since I was 16.
How does freedom feel to you after 7 years?
Well, for my lunch hour yesterday, I took a stroll down on Market Street for 30 minutes and just casually walking just like I hadn't even been inside of San Quentin. I felt real good. I came back to my work at 1 o'clock. I did the rest of my evening's work. I got in my car and I went back across the bridge in the evening, and I had my radio going and just really not thinking anything about the institution. I was John Doe, the everyday Q citizen, and I hit a certain grade there, and I look to my right, and I see San Quentin all lit up at night, and naturally I have an empty feeling. But I always had a little prayer that I said when I got into a situation like this, which is an alcoholic prayer. And the first 2 lines are the most important, is God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
At the car dealership, no customers have complained. Zalick's co-workers like him. There have been no problems.
When you change oil, this is where you take your oil out, right?
Yeah, that's for the transmission drain plug here.
Mr. Anderson, why? Why did you hire a convict to work here?
Well, I hired a convict because I feel in prison there's an unlimited amount of skilled men there, and these men have been accustomed to working. They want to work. And they are used to regimentation, they're used to getting up in the morning and going to work, and they're used to working a full week. So therefore, I feel that they'll make good workers, and most of these fellows are adaptable, they learn fast, and I've found that they will make a good employee.
Max Zalick will be released from San Quentin in March. His parole officers feel that his chances of making good on the outside because of this experience are much better than the chances of most men who leave San Quentin. The manager of this auto dealership, for his part, feels that he is doing something constructive for law and order. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, San Francisco.
It probably will surprise few husbands, but a study shows that women are twice as likely to lose money as men are. And the way they do it, according to the study prepared for the American Express Company, is by handing a clerk a $10 bill instead of a 1, for example, or putting their purse on a counter for enough time for a thief to grab it. The study shows that altogether some 7 million Americans last year had roughly $2 billion lost, stolen, or accidentally destroyed.
No matter how you look at a razor blade, it's straight, and your face isn't. You've been around this problem. We introduced the Norelco triple header with 3 new thin microgroup heads that float and follow your face. The Norelco triple header goes in where your face goes in, and out where your face goes out to give you a closer shave. So close, in fact, an independent laboratory test with some very independent men. The Norelco triple header actually shaved as close or closer than a leading stainless steel blade in 2 out of 3 shaves. It has a pump-up trimmer that lets you see what you're trimming. And it comes in both a cord and a rechargeable mono. The Norelco triple header. The men who can't keep a straight face when they shave. Norelco. You can't get any closer.
Now to Eric Severide in Washington for some observations on the news. Tonight, both his and those of a letter-writing viewer. Eric?
It's been pretty clear for some time, and the national election this fall, especially the Wallace vote, seems to confirm it, that one of the things eating at people's innards is a sense of voicelessness, a sense of being overwhelmed by big, enveloping things they can't argue back at. Big government, big businesses, big press, or big networks. Communication has to be a two-way street, or it's not communication. People do, by the tens of thousands, take to the mails and the telegrams, but this tends to be frustrating to the senders and also to the receiving officials, executives, editors, or broadcasters, who often can't even give the messages the attention they deserve. Some deserve none. Quite a few people read or listen with at least as much imprecision as writers write and speakers speak. Some deserve a great deal. Common sense, or wisdom for that matter, is not narrowly distributed in this country. Electronic journalism has a bit harder time making use of listeners' ideas than the printed press of readers' ideas for practical programming reasons. But there is no great reason why anyone like this reporter, who is privileged to occupy the public's eye, ear, and nostril, cannot on occasion pass along the thoughts of listeners who have something to say. Mr. J. Ed Smith of Columbia, South Carolina, raises a question about a remark made here to the effect that the Democratic Party will, in all probability, regain its strength and cohesion over the next 4 years. And he makes this observation. The Republican Party is made up of a more or less homogeneous group, affluent middle and upper classes. The relative numbers of this group fluctuates with the economy, but not appreciably. The Democratic Party is made up of divergent groups of blue-collar, unskilled, poverty, idle-rich, Negroes, immigrants, intellectuals, and pseudo-intellectuals. It has its own radical, middle, and conservative wings. This being the case, it has less cohesiveness, less loyalty, more likelihood of splintering. Therefore, during the next 4 years, with proper leadership of these subgroups, there might develop new third or fourth parties made up of extreme liberals and extreme conservatives, leaving the original party impotent in both numbers and national vigor. End of Mr. Smith's quotation. Walter?
And that's the way it is. Friday, November 29th, 1968. This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night.
To a skier, it's a foot of snow. To a boxer, it's a fast KO. To a sheriff, it's which way they went. To a smoker, it's a Kent. The taste of Kent. The taste of Kent. The taste of Kent. More taste, fine tobacco. To a jockey, it's a derby win. To a traveler, it's a welcome into a landlord. It's the monthly rent. To a smoker, it's a Kent. The taste of Kent. The taste of Kent. The taste of Kent. More taste, fine tobacco.
If you smoke a filter cigarette, try the taste of Kent.
This has been the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.